Hey there, everyone. My name's Adam, and today we have Jason Madden on, who is a franchise professional. He has franchises. He helps people with franchises. If you need any help, he has a website, which I'll link in the comments, but it's jmadden at esourcecoach.com, and that'll be down in the description. But hey, Jason, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Adam. Thank you for having me on here, man. It's a pleasure.
No problem. Thank you for coming on. So today we're going to be talking about franchising.
Yeah.
And everyone kind of thinks of McDonald's French fries to begin with, but our talk with you, we're going to get into way more than just that. But why don't you just go ahead and introduce yourself and how you got to this point, and then we'll go on from there.
Yeah. So my name's Jason Madden. Technically, I'm a career ownership coach with the Entrepreneur Source. That was actually my first franchise brand. That's where I help people find franchises that are in alignment with their goals as far as, I call it the U 2.0, right? The next step. We become professionals in our adult life. And at some point, we want to make a change and, focus on our own income, lifestyle, wealth, and equity goals instead of doing it for somebody else. Right. So I help people and empower people to do that. What got me into this was actually my military career. So I spent about 4 years in the Marine Corps, had a brief break in service and joined the Army. Ended up doing about 15 years total. Did the honorable service, kind of a medical retirement kind of thing, which kind of worked out because my wife's still active duty with the Air Force. It makes it a lot easier for us to kind of travel and move around and stuff like that. But that's kind of what led me to this business because it's virtual, it's mobile. I could take it anywhere with me. Never knew any kind of franchise like that ever existed, but turns out it was like something that was perfectly in alignment with my goals. And actually had somebody, help me with that. So did a lot of research on my own, kind of a meathead. So first thing I wanted to do was get an Anytime Fitness gym, right? I wanted to, get all the weights, do personal training, do all that kind of stuff. But my coach at that time, she was like, you really want to do that with your wife still active duty for your first business, brick and mortar, employees, all that kind of stuff. And like at that time, we were moving to Boston for her assignment. It's like, do that from Boston and where you're going to open in Montana. Like, well, yeah, you put it that way. It's not such a great idea, is it?
Right.
So she kind of helped me look at some other brands. And what I found was that there's a big disparity in education on franchising, especially for transitioning military, transitioning blue collar folks and things like that. And I asked her, it's like, hey, how do I do what you do? I know nothing about franchising. Teach me, Yoda. And she taught me and kind of introduced me to the Entrepreneur Source. And, it was, kind of history from there that led me to learning about other brands from the inside and helping people into them, and then purchasing more franchises through my business and being able to kind of grow from there.
So what are the franchises you're currently involved in personally?
So right now, I'm a multi-unit owner with a brand called Sharky's Cuts for Kids. It's it's a children's hair salon. We have one in Madison, New Jersey. The other one in Warwick, Rhode Island. That's actually going to be opening up here next month. And then there's going to be a third one, which we haven't developed that project yet, but it's on the way for late 2022.
Okay. And what was the first one you got into? I'm sorry.
The Entrepreneur Source.
Can you get into that? Is that you said that's mobile? You can take that.
Yeah, that's that's that career ownership coaching, and it's actually a franchise that helps people, for lack of a better description, find their own franchise. Right.
Okay.
So we have proprietary tools and resources to put people in like an education and discovery process instead of a sales process. Because if anybody on here is listening and they've ever researched franchising on their own and actually reached out to a specific brand to inquire about that franchise, they probably get hit with some really crazy sales techniques and a lot of pressure to go into business, but not a whole lot of hand holding and education. It's like, hey, get into the business. We'll take care of things from there. And I through what I do, I eliminate that pressure. And I actually partner with franchisors that are they're in compliant with a few things that we need to see from a brand, because not all franchises are the same, right? There are some that provide a ton of support to their franchisees, i.e. the business owners. And there's some that are just out there trying to sell franchises, and they make money doing that, but they don't provide a whole lot of value to their owners. So we do a pretty strict vetting situation through our corporate headquarters, and we partner with brands that, they are doing really well. They do provide that support to their franchisees. They're ethical in their practice, and also the biggest thing about it is they're willing to allow our clients to go through that discovery phase, and they take them through an educational process instead of a sales process.
Right. Now, when anyone ever mentions franchise, like you and me were talking about before I hit the record button, they think French fries, food. Yeah. But there's more than that, right? But like even me, I read about business all the time. I see franchises here and there, but I never really think about it.
Yeah. So there's probably 75, 85 different industries that are franchised out there. And of course there's some overlap on a lot of that, because how many industries can you actually list out,
right,
on a piece of paper? But there's probably about 4,000 of them and growing in the United States alone. And fast food is probably about 10% of that marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
But you can think about anything from real estate, property management, house flipping. There's the fitness space, personal training, health food, health coaching, recruiting, senior care, senior placement. I mean, the list can go on and on and on and on.
Right. Okay. Now, so everyone's going to say, like, what is the best franchise to get into? And that's not an easy question to answer. What's the best franchise?
So it depends on you, right?
Right.
There is no such thing. I had a client that I worked with very briefly. We didn't end up doing a whole lot of work together because he was a little closed-minded, because at that time, it was around 2018, Orange Theory was the top dog out there, and everybody wanted to talk about Orange Theory. All this guy wanted to do was own an Orange Theory business. I'm like,
what's that?
Orange Theory is a boutique gym kind of thing.
Okay.
They do, group workouts and stuff like that. Definitely not my kind of thing, but a lot of people seem to really enjoy it. But all he wanted was Orange Theory. I just want to do Orange Theory. It's like, why do you want to do Orange Theory? It's the best one out there. It's like, says the Franchise Business Review, which they spent a lot of money to pay for that placement. Right. It's like, do you think that you can do that? Is that something that you want to be a part of, growing and building a community, managing employees, managing a facility? You're not necessarily in there actually coaching and training and being that person in the gym. You're going to be the business owner, and that's a bigger business to start out with than most. And he kind of put it into perspective, but kind of was still a little closed-minded about it. But we ended up not working together because he just could not get around it that they had that Franchise Business Review listing with Orange Theory being at the top. And that's, I don't think he ever actually went into the business, to be honest, because it was out of his budget. But I could have helped him into something that was probably a little bit more in alignment with his goals, and he didn't really want to have that open-mindedness. And that's really important when you're going into business ownership. You want to have an open mind. 95% of the people that I work with, they go into a business that they never would have looked at or really considered on their own. And it's attributed to the educational process.
That's interesting, because I would have thought you'd be just searching the internet, or you just come across something and be like, oh yeah, that's a good business, I want to go into that franchise. But so then they get a hold of you, and then, like, I'm sure there's a process, you evaluate everything, and you're like, well, maybe this one's better for you.
Yeah, usually if somebody works with me, it takes us about 2 or 3 weeks before we even start looking at businesses together, because we're establishing a baseline. We're understanding where you're at right now and where you want to go, and those little goals in between. And I use assessments, I use worksheets. I give out a lot of homework at the very beginning. And it takes dedication to that process to be able to do it. Most of the time when people go into business through that process, they're wildly successful because they've been able to establish their goals and find something that can be a vehicle towards those goals, instead of just that whiz bang business with the flashy marketing.
Right. So what is the kind of I know it's going to be different for each franchise, but I'm going to assume there's some overlap and some similarities. Like, someone comes to you, we do all our talking, kind of say, all right, we're going to go into this. Like, what does a franchise process even look like?
That's a really good question. Not a lot of people actually ask me that. So, so when I do connect somebody with a franchise, so usually I'll say, hey, these are three, businesses that could be good vehicles for what you want to accomplish based off of what you told me. So they will, they'll reach out, they'll establish their initial call, get to know each other, make sure it's a good fit on both sides, because we come from the philosophy of franchises are not purchased, but they're awarded by the franchisor. Mm-hmm. And you want to find a brand that has that kind of a mindset, because that means that they want to build and grow with you. They don't want to just sell you a business. And so they have that initial call, be followed up usually by probably a webinar or a conference call that's usually a little bit longer, gets into the weeds of the business, kind of give you more of the in and out what a day in the life looks like. And then it'll follow up with you'll be in receipt of a franchise disclosure document, or an FDD. And that's a big, monstrous document. Franchises are actually regulated through the Federal Trade Commission. So they have to have certain items in those documents by law, so that potential franchisees can see everything. How many litigations has that franchise been in? How many owners are in the system? How many failed? What's there's an item 19 in there where it shows kind of average financial gains of each owner. Not every brand has that, because you have to be established for a little while to have that kind of information, right? So after you kind of go through the FDD, you've been disclosed. Usually it's a kind of a follow-up with that franchise developer with questions. Sometimes an attorney's involved, sometimes not. Sometimes the information's pretty cut and dry. And that'll be followed by speaking to other owners. And this is where a lot of franchisors tend to gloss over, but I insist upon it. My clients should be speaking to owners. They should see what success looks like in that business, speaking to those top 20%, and should see what failure looks like, speaking to the bottom 20. So that way they can gather all that information to make an educated choice. And usually after that, every franchise brand has what's called either a discovery day or a meet the team day. And that's where, before this pandemic, you could actually go to the franchise headquarters and meet everybody, sit through some presentations and stuff like that. But the important part is you get to meet the CEO, right? You get to meet the boss. They do that virtually now. So you still have those events. Some of them are all day long. Some of them are, a couple hours. And after that, that's usually kind of, everybody does it a little bit differently, but that's kind of the major milestones that you hit with every franchise discovery. And after that, it's, you make your decision. Is it for me? Is it not for me? Should I go with this brand? Should I go for that brand? And that's where I kind of help them with that analysis a little bit too.
Okay. It seems all kind of crazy. So what is the advantage of going with a franchise or just starting something?
Yeah, so I'm not necessarily married to any way of doing business, because you could do a startup, you could be an investor business owner, that real estate, stocks, Bitcoin, stuff like that. You could buy an existing business like a mom and pop that's retiring or something like that. And then you could do a franchise. So I like franchises because you got a playbook, so from my time in the military is all about SOPs and following those SOPs and executing them to be able to, complete your mission, successfully. And I like that about franchising, because not only that, you are technically a startup business owner, unless you buy a franchise from somebody else, right? But technically you're a startup business owner, but you're starting your business on third base instead of on the bench, right? Okay. So it propels you a little bit forward, because you have that game plan, you have that coaching, you have that resourcing from the franchisor. Usually they've been in that business 20, 30 years or something like that. So you have somebody that can really help you get over the finish line with your business. Right. And starting from scratch, nothing wrong with that. But there's kind of got to weigh the risks. Starting from scratch completely with something, maybe it takes you 2 or 3 years to become profitable. to starting up with something like a franchise where the average is about 6 months.
Oh, really?
6 months to a year, most brands.
Okay. So a lot of people are going to land on this video because they want to know how much they can make. And I already know it's going to be all over the place. So he's not going to be able to give you an exact answer, but try.
Right. Okay. So that goes back to that item 19 in a franchise disclosure document. That gives you a really good picture of what is possible with that business, but also you want to speak to those other owners. It's probably super inappropriate to approach a business owner and be like, bro, how much you make, right? But you could do it in a tactful way. You can be like, hey, how many sales do you need to make per quarter to be satisfied with your earnings? How many did you do last quarter? And what does it take to get to that point? You can have those kinds of conversations. That's kind of where the coaching comes in a little bit, is get out there, start talking to these owners, get on a Zoom call with them, get on a phone call, text them, whatever you need to do, connect with these guys so you can kind of see where that revenue potential is with that business. And you can never be 100% certain or sure, but you could get pretty damn close doing something like that.
Right. Have you gotten anyone into like McDonald's or Taco Bell or anything similar like that? That's not.
No, I don't mess with them. So my primary customer, my primary client is, sometimes I work with those executive white collar guys every now and then. Oftentimes, it takes more coaching because they just kind of want to buy themselves a job. And that's not necessarily the business I'm in. I'm here about changing your life, right? And I want for the better and building an asset and a resource and diversifying your investments even through your business. So I end up working with a lot of white blue collar guys, a lot of military guys and stuff like that. So we end up looking at things that are kind of at that 150K and below level. But now I say 150K because that's the SBA 7A loan, the SBA Express loan. So that's pretty attainable by most people. Credit score about 685. You need to have some liquid funds to inject into that loan. It depends on how much you're borrowing. So usually about 10% or something like that. But there are other options out there too for financing. But SBA is kind of a safe bet. It's a secured loan. It's doing business with the government, so you could qualify for other resources and things like that once you're kind of in that system.
Right. So
a lot of them end up being home based, to be honest.
Right. So everyone's clicking on this video because I put in the keywords McDonald's franchise. So that's easy to find information out on. Like it's like, what is it, $1 million liquidity to be able to get into.
Something like that, yeah.
But then, like, once you keep reading on, you see that these people aren't really making that much a year. They're not millionaires from one McDonald's, and it costs a lot of money to get into. It sounds like some of these other franchises, which are a lot less to get into, make you more money in 6 months, or like a living. Not necessarily more, but
or equivalent too, if not better. Because think about it. You're in a business and you might have the same volume of business, whether it's fast food or it's a service business or B2B or something like that. Say you have the same volume as a business as McDonald's, but your overhead's cut in by like 3/4 because McDonald's makes their money through real estate. McDonald's corporate. They buy plots of land and they rent their stores to their franchisees. And those end up being really big mortgage payments for the franchisees, or rent payments rather.
Right.
So that their expenses are astronomical. And think about the food, it's a perishable inventory. So you're constantly replenishing that. Your employees are, in a revolving door. Nobody wants that. Nobody likes that. If you have a really strong manager and you have multiples, like multiple units of McDonald's, it might be nice and you can do your corporate job or something like that while somebody else does all the heavy lifting. But not a lot of people want to do that. A lot of people that I work with, they want to kind of get their hands dirty a little bit and get into that business and actually know it too, so that they can, relinquish the reins to, a strong manager or something like that. And so that's why I look at a lot of things like home services, remodeling a bathroom or something, remodeling kitchens. There's a really strong brand out there that probably does better than McDonald's, and it's probably a tenth of the price, and it's Ace Handyman Services. Just like Ace Hardware is their branch of the home improvement side. So they have handymen and contractors that can go to your house. Say if it's an old lady, they can just like fix their locks, fix their door, change a light bulb for them. You don't have to do really big jobs to make a lot of money in those types of businesses.
Right. What's that junk one? I see it all the time and I just forgot.
1-800 Got Junk or Junk Luggers. Yeah. Help people into those ones as well. Those ones are great.
Yeah. That's one that I'm interested in.
Yeah. College Hunks Hauling Junk. That's a really good one. I like them. They have some, I'm not trying to plug any specific franchise on here, but I really appreciate their values and their leadership. Every dollar spent or every dollar earned or something like that, or I can't remember what the formula was, but for every job they do, basically they donate meals to shelters and stuff like that. Cool. I think that's pretty cool.
Right. Coming from the other side, what's in it for the franchisor? Is that the right word? The people? Yeah. What's in it for them? Why are they franchising?
So franchisors, it goes way back to expanding your business for less money. So you can go public, you can have an IPO, you can get investors and stuff like that. And you can really grow your business in a big way, but it ends up taking a lot of time and effort and money out of your pockets. So a lot of business owners look to franchising because it's actually cheaper to expand and grow your business. And instead of having, a ton of corporate locations out there that are kind of managed by a central office, it makes sense to have independent operators out there with the playbook, and it helps create more entrepreneurs in the community and more jobs and things like that way. But it also takes a little bit of stress off the franchisor. So they're just managing individuals there instead of whole stores or whole locations and stuff like that. And those individuals aren't necessarily managed by the franchisor because they're independent business owners with a license to do business as X brand. Right. So they pay the franchisor for that license. So the franchisor is actually making a little bit of money to be able to grow that brand. But part of those initial fees, those franchise fees, or for the most part, those franchise fees, they actually don't just go into the franchisor's pocket. They go into manpower, they go into training, they go into logistics, they go into marketing, all for that specific franchisee coming into the system. And how that franchisor actually makes money is through that franchisee's success. So when you look at McDonald's and you see royalties and all that kind of stuff, royalties are going back and reinvested back into the system. And also those are the ones that's how the franchisor actually gets paid too. Okay. So like maybe 1% will be taken out for national branding and marketing. And then I think an average royalty fee is probably around 6 or 7%. So that remainder will go back to that franchisor, pays their employees, pays the support staff, and pays the owners. Okay. So that's how they make money in the long run and grow their business.
What is a low spectrum franchise to get into, like cost wise and a little bit?
I always kind of place it like they can range anywhere from the cost of a new car to the cost of a new home. Okay. And I think that's a really good benchmark rather than just putting numbers out there, because obviously they vary quite a bit by brand to brand. So you can find something like a home-based owner-operator type of business for, usually the cost of a new car.
Okay. That's not bad. And then
that's not bad.
Then you have an income.
Yeah. Yeah. And you create an income out of it. I always advise people to, if they're going to borrow money, borrow a little bit more than what is actually quoted through the franchise to get your business started, because you want to create some sustainability for yourself, pay yourself a little bit of salary, be able to pay your bills while you're ramping up your business. It doesn't make a lot of sense to Dave Ramsey type people to finance that kind of thing. But if you don't, you're going to start thinking about other ways to make money instead of your business. And that business is going to take even longer to ramp up. It takes it twice as long to ramp up if you're going out there doing side jobs and things like that, right? While your intended primary source of income is just kind of sitting there while you're spending your time on these other things.
Right. Are these scalable? Not in having to open up a second franchise, because that's definitely scalable. You could open one in a town somewhere else, but the I'm gonna guess some of them are scalable, like the handyman one. You can start hiring people.
Sure.
Location ones, it's a little more expensive, but like, a lot of these, I'm guessing, are scalable in some way.
For the most part, yes. So like in terms of like that, maybe that fiber new business or Ace Handyman Matters, or services rather, they go by territory. So they protect territory. You are the only franchisee that has this specific geographic space, and that could be, whatever they deem necessary. How many households with this amount of income or something like that. They do the franchisor does that kind of analysis. So a single unit franchise, that's you. You're ready to grow, you buy another territory that's adjacent to you or something like that. And then you grow another team over there, and so on and so on and so on. One of my clients in North Carolina, he bought that Ace Handyman Services business a couple of years ago, and he started out with one territory, and he's up to 3 now. And he just slowly kind of scales with it. A lot of franchisors will tell you to buy multiple units right up front, because it's cheaper, because they do like kind of a sliding scale on there. But I say, hey, make sure that's in alignment with your goals, because it takes a little while to grow into those territories. It may cost you more money to purchase that territory later on, but at least you're not there, with territory that's not being serviced, and you're trying to grow into it, and you've depleted your resources to get them.
Right. It's a very interesting. I'm gonna tell my friend about this Ace one. Because he works for Lowe's, and I think this would work good for him.
Yeah.
Is it through Ace Hardware or?
Yeah, same company. It's a sister brand to them.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I wonder if there's anywhere doing that.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I can make some connections for him. I know the boss over there.
Okay, cool. So last question, and it's kind of a broad one. What is like one mistake you've seen people do, and you may have already touched on this, where they're not open-minded or whatever, but what's some mistake other people have done that the viewers can learn from and not have to do? So
mistakes, and is it mistakes in researching your franchise or mistakes in operating your franchise?
Anything, just so that people can avoid learning on their own, a mistake on their own.
So learning mistakes on the research side is actually looking at too many things at once. You can get lost in a sea of franchises. I call it the franchise buffet. You're going to have a taste of a little bit of everything, but nothing's going to really fill you up. It's just going to be everything, right? So establishing your goals in the front end, and then kind of limiting it and finding a handful of things to look at is a little bit better than looking at all of them. Okay. And then on the ownership side, and this is something that I've learned from firsthand experience, and I've seen some of my colleagues do it too. But spare the franchise your genius. You coming in there, like I was a warrant officer in the Army. Of course I knew everything, right? Coming into my business, and I did it my way. I bought a franchise, and then I did the business my way, which was not the way that they trained me in the way that's in the playbook. And that's how a lot of owners lose their business. They're not following the system. So whenever I have a client that goes into a franchise now, I was like, hey, spare them your genius for at least 6 months to a year before you put your own spin on things. Follow the playbook. You're spending the money on it. Use it. Do it. Follow the system. Trust it. And you'll be madly successful at the very beginning, instead of having to learn that lesson like I did and be, set back a year or so in your business.
Right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for being on, everyone. Thank you for watching. Again, if you're thinking about getting in the franchise world and just want to explore it, Jason's website is jmadden.esourcecoach.com. And again, that link is in the description. For everyone else, we're also going to talk about another business that he already had mentioned, the hair thing, or the hair thing. The hair. I don't have hair. He doesn't have hair either. Why is he in the hair?
Crazy, right?
Yeah. So that will also be on the channel, so you can check that out, and I'll link that in the description as well. All right, Jason, thanks for being on, man.
Thanks, brother. Have a good one.